this be one of the goriest films as they're claiming? Will this get a 10 out of 10 gore scare score? Hello friends, I am so excited for today's video because today I'm gonna go see The Monkey, a title I am not a fan of only because my only fear on earth is monkeys, but this is a toy, thank God. The 2025 splatter horror dark comedy is about two brothers who find their father's old monkey toy in the attic, and soon after a series of gruesome deaths begin. This is Oz Perkins. You know him, you likely love him, likely interested in what he's been doing in horror for the past decade, but I do think this is going to be a change of pace finally for his films. I did think the Pretty Little Thing That Lives in the House was a little slow. Black Coat's Daughter loved. Gretel and Hansel loved, Longlegs loved, but I do think that The Monkey is going to be a completely different pace because it is known as a splatter film, where his other films were definitely slow burns. The film stars Elijah Wood and Theo James, and it's based on a short story from Stephen King's Skeleton Crew. Something that I really like about Oz Perkins films is that they don't give away too much in marketing. Sure, there is a trailer out there for this film, but I don't feel like it's been too in your face in terms of the other marketing around it. I felt like they found clever ways of hyping up the audience and getting them into the zone of knowing that this is going to be a very graphic film without spoiling too much. They did this really well with Longlegs. No one really knew what to expect, but they gave the vibe of what was the final product. But the real question here is this film going to be as graphic as it's making it out to be as a splatter film? I want it to be intense. I'm also very interested if this is going to be a layered film or just, you know, a basic upfront fun horror where we see a lot of great kills. Will this be one of the goriest films as they're claiming? Will this get a 10 out of 10 gore scare score? Well, there's only one way to find out. Let's go watch The Monkey. Let's go. Friends, that was not what I was expecting, which sounds really silly for me to say in this circumstance, but that film was different than I thought. It does things very differently, which was a nice surprise. I think that Oz Perkins' stylization within a dark comedy was a breath of fresh air in a lot of ways, but this movie is far from perfect. The Monkey is a journey film, and it is a very strange adventure because not only do we have this tone of this film, which really does set it apart, it is one of the driest in terms of comedy horror films I've ever seen, maybe driest films. It is dry comedy to the bone. I would describe the tone of this film very dry, hyperbolic, dark humor. I just wasn't expecting it to go that hard in terms of, I guess, comedy. I thought, knowing that it's meant to be quite graphic, and we are going to talk about the graphic stuff because it does that differently too, but I thought it was going to be all about those moments, all about the kills, all about that kind of aspect. And although there's a lot of that, there is a lot of that to enjoy in it and a lot of unique aspects to that, it really does focus on the humor. And I would say, especially if you saw my review for Heart Eyes, it is completely opposite to that film, where that film is very over the top, silly, goofy, slapstick. This is just dry delivery and a very, very dark sense of humor. But the film does tackle the idea of death, and it kind of sums everything up within that. But in terms of the layers, I don't think that there are really that many. So it was a very interesting film, which kind of says what it wants to out loud instead of hiding meanings within different aspects. It's a very obvious approach. The movie does follow twins, two boys who inherit the monkey, and their journey. I did not expect it to spend so much time in their childhood, so it definitely goes from their childhood into their adulthood and everything that happens in between, and I guess that causes them to be the way they are, and it's very well explained. It's not anything like, obviously, like Longlegs, where you're gonna have to, you know, guess what's happening. It serves it all up in a platter to you, and it's just there for you to enjoy. And in that respect, you can really tell that it is based on a short film because it is very simple, and you can tell how they've tried to pack out time and put in extra details, extra characters, and kind of shift things. Although it does have a poetic flow to it, there's not a lot to the story, really. And I do feel like because the dryness, we're going to have to add that back in, and I'm sorry for saying it so much, but because of that, the film is very still and it has a lot of silence. I think towards the end, there's a lot more music and a lot more, I wouldn't say fun, but, you know, towards the climax, there's a lot more going on in terms of the sound design. But really, throughout a lot of the film, it is very still. And that is also what makes it feel kind of longer. It doesn't feel like a snappy, quick, jumpy film. I think it opens up that way, but as you settle into the characters, it is quite a slow unraveling story. I wouldn't say it's a slow burn, but it was definitely a lot slower than I expected. I thought it was going to be a snappy, graphic, really intense scenes, lots of bloodshed, and just non-stop action, and it's really not like that. In fact, let's talk about the gore. So I didn't find this film to be scary at all, apart from some of the the monkey shots, the little paws around the bottom of the drums. I hate them. Apart from that, I did not find the film to be scary at all because it approaches gore in a very different way. It is unique, I will give it that. I was not unhappy with any of what happened in the story. I thought it was fantastic, but it is quick and it is clean. And when I say clean, I believe that the film gives the audience the impression they need from the setup and the execution of these scenes. And once the audience understands what's happening, it's out. So a lot of these scenes aren't drawn out, they aren't long, they aren't agonizing, it isn't torturous, and it makes you more think about the pain of the situation than sitting and squirming within watching someone go through it. So you feel it in a very different way psychologically. You feel it in your body for that split second, and it doesn't let you sit with it. So it's a very interesting approach. I haven't seen a film that sets up so many fun, unique moments like that, but doesn't give the audience time or really indulge in letting those scenes play out to their full effect. It's in and out. So I thought that was interesting. The bad news, I don't mind if it's quick and snappy. I think that's really fun with the stylization, and because it's dry and it's kind of being funny and silly with it, it makes sense with that tone. But what I did not like is the use of, I hate that I have to say this, but the use of CGI effects that are put onto a lot of scenes in this film. And I'm not even talking about just those graphic scenes. There are scenes throughout this film that I think that they could have used realism in terms of practical effects quite easily, especially because a lot of those moments are quick. They are so quick. So I feel like logistically there's a lot of ways they could cut around showing too much because it is in and out, and why not have real liquids? They still do use some, but it was very obvious when it wasn't used. So I really don't think it's as graphic as I expected, which is crazy. Did the monkey go too far with its gore? No, I think it could have gone harder. I think it could have gone much harder. I did gasp at some moments for sure, but you know, if I'm gonna get nitpicky and really talk about those elements, which is what I was really looking forward to, I have to mention that. But I also want to talk about this and transfer it back into the stylization of the whole film, because although we have watched Oz Perkins kind of slowly evolve the way his films look, this film felt like it was set within the Longlegs universe to a T. It felt like it could have been set in the same town or even the same houses. It all looks very similar, especially this car shots, which happen a lot in Longlegs and are reoccurring, and just in the house, just the way things are framed. I've seen Longlegs so many times and I can just pick out exact moments that look like the same setup. There's even one shot I really think is the same. I think it is the same. But I don't think this is a bad thing. I think this might be Oz Perkins coming to his realization of his style and sticking with something as he evolves. And there's nothing that's wrong with that. It's just interesting because I think Longlegs is based in realism, and so when you take things that happen in this film, there are some other elements that kind of go in and out of realism, and with the quick and hyperbolic dry graphic scenes and with that CGI on top and putting it into what you would, you know, imagine happens in Longlegs, it's a very interesting mix. I also don't know how many comedies I would like to see in this stylization, although I enjoyed it. I laughed the whole way through. Dry humor is my favorite. I would pick this out of anything, and maybe it's because it was such a simple story. I just didn't feel like there was enough to just keep going any longer. I do feel like it went for like 10 or 15 minutes too long. There's also this whole element with characters, and if you do bring them in during a story that has all of these interesting tonal aspects, how close can you get to them and how high can the stakes be? If it is so funny and so unserious, it's such a dark sense of humor, then when they have these emotional elements, they just didn't work on me so much in this film. But I would say that instead of getting payoff emotionally from the film, I felt it poetically pay off. The film is satisfying, but just in a very different way. The way that they construct these moments, these graphic kills, beautiful. It's so fun to watch. I wish there was even more, honestly. The more the merrier. And on top of that, another interesting element is the structure. I wasn't expecting it to spend so much time in childhood and really go through the story in a linear fashion. I thought it was going to be very much based in flashbacks, and I totally did a disservice to the cast in this film. There are so many people included in this film, and there are so many different characters. Although Theo James definitely carries the film, Elijah Wood is just one of the many characters within it, including Oz Perkins himself. There's a lot. It's a journey through, you know, their life, so they encounter different characters along the way. If you like seeing things that are different and you like having shock moments, if you like dry humor, check it out. It is worth your time if these things apply to you. I'm gonna give this one a 7 out of 10. I enjoyed it. I do wish it was just a little bit shorter and a little bit more sharp, but would that be making it like every other film? Maybe. In fact, for its originality, we do have a score for that. I'm gonna give it a 8. I know that I said the story is simple, but it's just all of these elements together. I've never seen a film quite tonally like this, so I thought it was a very interesting concoction. And for the scare and gore score, I did not find this one scary at all. There were some great moments. There really were some great moments in terms of graphics. I'm sorry, I'm switching up so I don't use the other G word so much so YouTube doesn't get mad at me, but there were some great moments and it's worth it for that alone. So I'm still going to give it a 7 for that. I am. Even though it's short and sharp, it did the job. Okay, that's my complicated thoughts on Monkey. I did not think that I would have that much coming out. It genuinely was so different, so it's a very interesting film to discuss all of those elements without getting into the story at all, which is up to you to discover now. Let me know if you've seen it. Let me know your thoughts down below. Don't forget I did a bunch of videos last week giving you lots of recommendations for the most disturbing films of last year and recommendations of some of the films you would have missed. So make sure you check them out and I'll talk to you all very soon. Don't forget to subscribe if you do like horror content. I'm here every single week giving you multiple videos with recommendations to help you choose films for your personal taste. Stay safe and stay spooky. Bye, friends.